I love to feel organized when I'm working on my sewing projects and my art projects. I recently created myself this really cool little paintbrush holder out of some fantastic canvas, and I've got the perfect recipe for you to follow. Let's get started. You're gonna love this project. And before we even dive into the supplies, I'm gonna invite you down to the description below. Print out our free printable today. I'm gonna show you how I built the tool holder in front of me, but I wanna talk to you all about how you can make this custom fit for your personal tools, whatever kind of tools they are, whether they're brushes, whether they're sewing notions, whether it's something from the wood shop, your knives. That's where my inspiration came from, my knife kit that I have. So at any rate, what we're gonna do is we're gonna gather our tools that we wanna organize. Then we're going to take the longest tool we have and we're going to measure the length of the longest tool. We're going to double it and we're going to add about an inch. And I also will use a measurement based on one of my smaller tools for figuring out my pocket. But all I need to know to figure out my supplies is how long do I want my biggest tool, and then of course how wide do I want this. So I'm using roughly a 1/2 yard of this fantastic, this is a heavier weight print. It's from Cotton+Steel and it's an actual linen canvas. And so it's more like that home decorator weight and it's perfect for gear style sewing. And of course I love the design on it and they've got several fantastic ones out there. So once I determined how big I want to make it, now I can begin my construction of this. So from here on out, if you're following my recipe, I'm going to tell you, we're going to go ahead and use our panel size pieces or our rectangles. Let's see, I've got one here cut for us. And they are going to be 12 inches by 17.5 inch rectangles. You're going to need 2 of those. I also measured for my little pocket piece. It's also 12 inches across like the panel piece was. And this one here looks like it's about 6 inches tall because it's the size of my small handle on my small tool. We're gonna need one more piece and that's roughly that 17.5 inches by 1 1/4, and that's where we're gonna start today. We're gonna build our tie strap that you see right here so that we can put it in place before we construct the rest of the bag. So I've taken this 1 1/4 strip, and the first thing to do is I want to press it so that when I stitch it, I only have to stitch it one time. That's my goal. So I'm going to get my iron nice and hot, and I'm going to fold it first in half, right sides out, and I'm going to create a center line with the iron, like that. Now the other piece I've already been working with, I then took and I started to fold down and press as I go. But I've got fun things to show you, so I wanted to show you that that came together here. I also want a finished triangle edge at this end right here, if at all possible. So once I pressed in the sides, now what we're going to do is I'm going to, well, let's see. Might be easier if I do this way first. I'm going to open it up. I'm going to fold down a 45 and a 45 like when we do our Christmas packages or like our mitered corners, our mitered bindings. Now I got that, I can hit that tip with my iron and not burn my finger. That's how I had to switch hands. Now I'm going to fold it back together and back together this way. And then one more pressing. And I've already done that as you saw on the other side. So now I can just fold this right over. And I'm going to come to the machine and I'm going to try to put my needle right on the very edge of those 2 finished edges I created with the fold. Back stitch to secure. And I'm using a white thread so you can see the work today, but I would encourage you to use maybe a matching thread. I should probably be using green here. Okay, now we're just watching those edges come together, very nice and easy, super simple. Just kind of small. I'll also mention if you're putting really thick-handled tools in your roll-up, you may want to go longer than the 18 inches that I've used in this strap because you might need the length to go around your actual roll-up as you're working. Okay, now my strap has been created. Got what I need there. That worked out pretty darn good. Now what I want to do is I want to show you how I positioned it onto the outside of the back of the roll-up. And the way I found that spot was I took one of those panels, I folded it in half first, top to bottom. Then I went ahead and folded it here. And so that strap is going to line up somewhere in this middle spot right here. I basically pinched it on, took it over to the sewing machine and top stitched it into place. As you can see, was done right here. So that completes the construction for the back so far. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and work on building this pocket into place. Now for this pocket, what I did, as I mentioned earlier, I had about a 6x12. What I want to do is I want to finish the top edge here that will be against our tools. Now I have a print, so I'm making sure that my tigers are right sides up. I'm going to come over here and I'm going to double fold with just my fingers. And I'm going to also top stitch this to finish it now and get rid of the raw edge. All of the other edges will be caught in the construction of the actual roll-up. And I'm just kind of working a few inches ahead of myself here, pinching and folding, pinching and folding. All the way through to the end. Fantastic. Okay, so now that part there is made, and now what we're going to want to do is take that other rectangle I had. Here, we save this actually because I'm going to put the pocket on it. Take a moment, slow down. Make sure the orientation of your prints are going to be correct. What I'm going to do now, I've got my birds and my tigers up, my birds and my tigers up, and these are both going to set on my table, both fabrics right sides up, and I'm going to stitch with just this narrowest seam allowance just around the sides and the bottom of this to secure it, but I will capture it later as I finish the construction. Watch this. So I'm right on the edge, basically. I'm looking at the edge of my presser foot. I'm just going to sew all the way out that bottom corner and then return. I love doing these gear sewing projects because I can really custom to this kind of equipment I have. And it's funny, recently I was looking through my backpack and I had about 5 or 6 of these different things in my backpack for different reasons. The first aid kit we did a while ago was in there. The knitting kit was in there. I have a little thing I made for my headphones. It's fun to know how to do all of this stuff, that's for sure. Okay, so we're anchoring this last side down. Now, one last thing I want you to look at with your own customization is in my toolkit, I again was doing paintbrushes. So I had some fairly narrow size handles, narrow handles like this. So I just put my stitching at 1-inch intervals as I went across here. If you were putting something that was really large in there, like ice cream scooper handles or something like that, I don't know, just sounded delicious right now, then maybe you want to make 2-inch gaps, or you can always make a couple 1-inch gaps and a couple 2-inch gaps. What I did is I stitched, as you can see here, just to kind of save a little time here today, I started at the bottom, I came to the top in each row, but I made sure that I back stitched up here also. I really want that nice and secure because I'm going to be sliding a lot of tools in and out of that over the life of the bag. You see here that the pocket has been finished. So now what I really want to do is I want to get a little bit of extra padding, something that give us a little bit of body in our bag. So I'm going to take the pocket side and I'm going to go ahead and lay this face down or print side down. This is the Heat and Bond Fusible Fleece. So it's got one bumpy side that is the texture. And I've cut this at a 1/2 inch smaller round. So this is now 11.5 by 17 instead of 12 by 17.5. That's to omit that bulk. I'm eyeballing it here, but now I'm going to flip it back over because I want to bond the fabric very well to the glue side. And this is how I get that heat to transfer proper. So I've got a real hot iron here. Some folks will even apply a little steam at this point. We won't ever be quilting any more of this or texturing any more of this. So I really want this batting to hold well over the life of the project. When you quilt things, that holds all those layers together nice. But when we do this just by stitching around the exterior, we don't have a lot of security on there. Okay, we are ready to construct this. Now what we're gonna do is I'm gonna take my ties, I'm gonna make sure they're deep on the inside of the bag. You could put a pin there if you were comfortable with that. I also wanna make sure that my ties are on the bottom where the pocket side is as I go right sides together. Okay, we're gonna leave the opening at the top of the roll up because we've got enough to worry about down here. And I'm also gonna just take a moment and flip these back over because now I can watch what's happening with my batting side. So I'm coming over here and I'm gonna start about, let's call it 4 inches remaining on this seam up here. Oops. Let's take a second and make sure they are all lined up. There we go. We're going to start right here. 1/4 inch seam allowances now. And I'm going to come and I'm going to sew all the way off that corner so that I can then turn and rotate and do it again. Just eyeballing to make sure everything's lined up nice. We're going to sew all the way through here. Now we're approaching the area where the pocket is located, so I'm making sure that everything is as it should be, but that's also why we basted it in place. And I just captured that off the bottom edge there. I'm coming through here. And these little ties, or those little stinkers, are trying to come down, so now I'm going to position them way up in the bag so they're out of the way again. Oh, this is looking good. Right to the corner. Now we're back at the top corner where we started, so I'm going to sew off that edge. And off that edge, one more stitch, please. Thank you. And then we're going to rotate. And I'm going to come in here and I'm going to go about another 4 inches or so. I'm going to back stitch so it doesn't come free while I'm working on it. And before I turn this thing right sides out, I want crisp corners, so I'm going to dog ear my corner with my rotary cutter. Don't cut your stitches open. And now we're going to go ahead and just reach down in here. I like to grab a back corner if I can. Start to pull it up. Just like this. And now I'm just going to take a second here as I work these corners. Make sure that all those edges come out nice. We will go ahead here in a second and we're going to get the top stitching to get the top edge finished that way. I will not have to hand sew this closed. But I do like to iron, so I want to make sure my iron is heated up over there while I've been working. Okay, let's just take a moment, and I love to use my little shark tool down here as a corner turner. There's a lot of fabric down here in this bulk of this corner, so I can only use something a little firm, a little rigid, poke that out nice and square. Same on that other bottom corner. Perfect. The top corners look pretty sharp, but we might as well make them awesome while we're here. Beautiful. Okay, so now to get a really nice closure here at this little 4-inch opening that we've left, I find that it's really nice if I'll just roll that edge under to secure where the batting part was, that fusible fleece. Then I'm kind of holding it right now with my thumb while I'm grabbing for my iron, and I'm just going to press this edge because that really helps me keep a nice top stitch, and that's exactly where I'm going to start. So as I come back to the machine now, I'm kind of more back in that same width that I was when I had been putting the edges of the pockets on. So right on the edge, and I'm just going to make sure all this stays nice and secure. So I'm pinching with a couple of fingers that opening. Just like this. And because we're top stitching, we're not going to sew off the edge. We're going to kind of round the corner, square the corner as you need. There we go. I also, while top stitching, kind of use my fingers down here. I'm kind of rolling. I don't know if you can see this, but I'm kind of rolling my fingers at the seams or the edges to kind of make sure that I get all the way back to the actual thread in that seam. It's funny the things we do naturally while we sew that we sometimes forget to even think about. But they're good techniques. I try to mention them when I remember what I'm really doing over here. Okay, let's get this bottom edge. There's a lot of bulk down there, so take your time. You want it to look really nice. I'll trim off those little thread whiskers later. Probably should have done that before I put all those right sides together earlier, but they'll trim off nice now. And we're almost done with this project, ladies and gentlemen. As we're coming around, just make sure you don't top stitch those ties into place. And fantastic, we are completely finished. And look at that. We have all of our pockets as necessary. We have our wonderful tie on the back of here. This will fold over like this. Now, I have also considered maybe taking a line of stitching right down the center, but in my mind, that kind of eliminates the customability or the options down the road. What if I end up getting a really large brush or something like that and I need to put it in here and just maybe fold it 3/4 of the way? So you're welcome to sew in half if you would like to. I have opted not to so far, but you know I'm always experimenting with these projects, always kind of custom creating, and then I kind of test over the years as we play with this stuff. And the reason I do this is because I get so many wonderful comments from all of you out there saying, Rob, would you please make this? Rob, would you please make that? And the answer is, I'll give it my best shot. So when it comes to gear, I want to know what kind of things are you all needing to build still. So please, in the comments below, let me know what kind of gear sewing would you like to see right here at Man Sewing. Oh, hey, are you still in here? I thought you would have been checking out some of those other great videos. You know, we've got a link there, over there. And hey, don't forget to subscribe. Make sure you never miss a minute of the action. We'll catch you next time at Man Sewing.